Welcome to Your Brand Amplified, the podcast where we interview marketers, publicists, and brands to learn their stories, what makes them tick, and tips and tricks that make a difference. Thank you for coming back for another episode of Your Brand Amplified. I am Annika Jackson, and I am here with Hank Dearden, who is the founder and executive director of ForestPlanet, a nonprofit that supports large-scale, low-cost per tree reforestation efforts all over the world. Hank, I'm a big proponent of NGOs and nonprofit work. I have a couple of my own that I've started and that I'm really involved in. So I am just really grateful to have you come and share your story and your journey today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So what prompted you to get into the world of nonprofit? Were you already working in nonprofits, or did you come from government, or what was your start?
Sort of both a private sector background in sales, marketing, business development, advertising. I mean, I have engineering degrees, and the great thing about going to engineering school was learning at a young age that I'm not an engineer.
Oh, wow.
And that's fine, but I respect it and I understand. And this was quite relevant, how things should be meshed and connected, and how take a kind of like a systems view of any large problem, whether it's a large motor or a machine or a computer or a social system like a city or an environmental ecological system like a meadow or whatever, and that there's levels and rates and there's interconnectivity. And that always stuck with me. And, when you're looking at a big problem, how do you find structure pretty quickly where you can get the best leverage points to make an impact that's positive and constructive? So yes, in business development, sales and marketing, more like high-tech stuff forever that required some explaining, a consultative sell, if you will. And that's fun. I like that. My dad was a social worker, so we were raised with a sort of like a therapy mindset or a relational mindset. And then actually this thing called the internet came along. And then I was like, that's that, because that brought everything together. It was tech, it was communications, it was art, it was ideas, it was commerce, sex, drugs, rock and roll. I mean, it was the whole thing. And that was fun. So I had my own little agency for a while where I was doing media buying and planning. And this was like 1998 when no one knew what that meant, including me. So that was interesting. I learned a lot. But then in the early aughts, I met another nonprofit that was doing tree planting and around the world. And I was like, so tell me a little bit more. And then I got into the whole systemic approach. And I was like, I know exactly what you're talking about here, about soil regeneration and water retention and society, the fabric of the society, and, where the tree is really kind of like a point of an inverted pyramid that delivers all these benefits. And I was like, I get it. I see what you're doing. They talk about permaculture, which is where, trees are planted next to crop 1, crop 2, crop 3, crop 4, multiple species of things going on, all kind of working together, which is how, of course, nature works, which was a mindset change for me, because as an Ohio boy growing up, agriculture to me was corn forever.
Right.
Look out and you just see cornfields. Well, that's agriculture. Well, that's monoculture. And that's actually pretty bad for lots of reasons, which we don't need to get into now, but it's not resilient and it's just not good. But permaculture is very good for lots of reasons. And the linchpin is kind of the tree to help make that happen. And when you talk about soil regeneration. So I was off and on with another NGO that was doing tree planting for a while. I was their vendor. I was working on their website, telling their stories. And then they had a kerfluffle, and then I was out. And then that sort of changed, and then they asked me back to be on the board, and I'm like, okay, I'll be on the board. And God love the founder. He was a great guy, but he was getting on and he had multiple illnesses, God bless him. And then I was like, okay, so we need to have a plan. What's next? That's my fiduciary responsibility. And he didn't want to talk about it, and I was like, no, we have to talk about it. It's fact. And no, A, we don't want to talk about it, and B, you're fired. So okay. And sure enough, he went to his reward, and I truly admire the man, but the place fell apart. And they came back to me again and said, we need you to be COO. I'm like, okay, well, we need to scale. Let's get this together. We are muddling along at 20 million trees a year, which sounds great, but we could be 50 times this.
Wow.
We could be 50 times. We could be $1 billion a year if we tighten up and run it like a business, like a machine, right? Let's sort of mesh the gears and crank it up, because right now we cannot scale, assuming you want to scale. And now I certainly did, because the world needs the trees, and we can get back to that. And you guys have a good model and you have a good program, and, it's kind of, let's step up, right? Well, I might have well have been, the money changer in the temple, I looked upon like, well, but we're not a business. We're a mission-based organization. And I'm sure you get that all the time. I go, if you get a paycheck, you're a business. The 501c3 is a tax designation, not a mindset. And anyway, so lots of headbutting. And then I found myself on the curb again with this same organization, almost like a battered spouse arrangement, abused spouse over 15, 16 years. And so the last iteration, third time's the charm, I just decided, well, the first thing I'm going to do is go to Ireland and go biking, as one does, just to clear your head. And then got over there, and I really liked the mission. I really liked what was going on. I really liked the program. And people say, well, Hank, you were effectively the COO of that one. You're a former board member. You know where the bodies are buried. You know how to do this kind of stuff. Just start your own. And I was like, well, I don't really have the program experience, living in the developing world and putting all these together. That's a big investment. It's like, you don't need that. You just need to find people who know what they're doing, who are kind of below the radar, and sub it out to them. They'll love you. And I'm like, I can't do that. Actually, yes, I can. In fact, that's actually a better model. So now I'm pretty more resilient. And so in 2017, founded ForestPlanet and took all year to get the 501c3 and set up the machinery where these other organizations, I find them, and set up the machinery where they're being vetted by a third party that knows what they're doing and knows how to vet these people, and look in the books and bad actor checks and all that basic stuff. Again, when you're sending money to wherever, I don't have the resources to vet them. Other people do. And then set up another organization as a partner who's actually based in Spain, and they have brilliant satellite monitoring and evaluation. They can do all kinds of wonderful measurements, eye in the sky. Nice. And the type of work we're doing, you can see from space easily. Wow. So it's not just taking a picture, but also doing measurements of, vegetation index and density. And they can tell this is a shrub, this is a tree, that type of stuff. They can do tree counts. They can do all those kinds of measurements. Well, anyway, I had to set up all that infrastructure. And then I went and just started, pounding the pavement saying, hey, let's find partners, let's find businesses who want to differentiate their brand in a manner that's affordable, easily communicated, and legit, go green in a way. And it's fast impact. And it's that. Now, it took me too long to get to the first 1 million trees, but we just passed that, and we just got another grant. So we got another 400,000 trees coming this year at least.
Congratulations.
So that's a long answer to your question, hopefully.
Well, there's so many things in that are important for all business owners, because a nonprofit is, as you said, it's a tax designation. It is a business. Yep. And I think that's a huge misnomer, is people think, oh, nonprofit. Well, nonprofit, you can still have surplus money coming in. You can still have a profit. It's what you do with that profit that makes a difference. So you talked about that. You talked also about the problem that a lot of nonprofits have, but I'm also seeing it in the business world, especially with small businesses and entrepreneurs. You're the person who started it. It's your baby. It's really hard to pass on. But we're seeing this a lot with companies and also in the nonprofit world, where executive directors are getting older and there's not enough talent to replace them, right? There haven't been people who have been given the keys to the kingdom and said, hey, I want you to learn this job. You might know how to do X, Y, Z, but this is a different skill set. Let's train you up so that you can take over. And it's a huge issue. Actually, the company that I just moved to recently is a fantastic example of somebody. She's had her company for 21 years. She'd been looking for a replacement for herself for 5 years. And it took us a good 6-month vetting process to make sure we would be the right fit, so that eventually, knock on wood, that I'll be able to take over the business. And in the meantime, right now, we're integrating everything in. But she had that vision of, I don't want the work I've done with my clients and the impact we've made to go in vain. I want this company to continue. But there's so little foresight in so many organizations these days.
Well, part of it is like the whole thing, I'm going to live, maybe it's a Peter Pan we all have as Americans, whatever, like we're going to live forever. And that's a thing. And then there's also there's just day to day. And then it's also kind of depressing, like what's going to happen when I'm dead. Who wants to think about that? I got 57 action items that have to be done in the next hour.
Right.
Don't talk to me about that. I'll sleep when I'm dead. It'll be somebody else's problem. So I'm not really sure about how to sort of do that. I've got a plan for passing the baton and when it comes time to implement, but that's going to be in 20 years.
Yeah. Awesome. But at least you have a plan, and that's so important. And then funnily enough, one of the nonprofits that I started is called Learn, Grow, Lead. We focus on education in Ghana, but we quickly realized it's not enough to pay for kids to go to school. some of the kids didn't have a safe place to live. So we built an orphanage, but then also it's about the organization we partnered with. To your point, it's very easy to just send money willy-nilly and not understand where that money is going. That's why we started a nonprofit here, so that we could have transparency with our partner there. We know what paperwork they have from the country of Ghana, from the city of Cape Coast. We know what kind of certifications and licenses they have to have. We see the bank statements, so that there is accountability that we can then take back to our donors.
Yep.
But on the other side, so part of what we did there is start organic farming. But right now we lease the land, and we're about to do a fundraise to buy the farmland so that we can do exactly what you were talking about, because we can't plant trees on land that we don't own. And that has definitely been an issue. They rotate the crop, but trees are a really important part of that. So I'd love for you, I definitely want to get into more of the marketing and the business side, but I would love for you to talk more about trees. Like, where are the places that you're working in most right now? And how is that helping change lives and change the landscape?
Absolutely. My model is working in the developing world. So when I say it's 15 cents a tree, I'll say it like I'm selling low, but only buying slightly lower. We're working in parts of the world where a dollar goes really, really far, and it's really, really needed. And yes, here in Washington, D.C., we've got wonderful tree cover. And there in L.A., you've got Tree People, which is a great organization, and they're working on the city canopy. And that's a completely different animal. The trees in these locations are like necessary for survival. Okay. So first place was Madagascar, mangroves on the coast, and mangroves are hugely important trees.
Oh, yeah.
We can get into that later. Tanzania, there's a group that I found called the Friends of Usambara Society, which no one's ever heard of, including me, in a town called Lushoto, which I had never heard of, but it's not far from Kilimanjaro. But it turns out that these guys have been doing a wonderful job. They're homegrown. They're from that area. They've got the nursery system going. It's sort of like a hub and spoke model, which magnifies the survivability of the trees, and are planting trees for all different types of reasons. And I'll come back to them in a second. And then the other one that I've just found is up in Morocco, which is also in Africa, but literally 4,000 miles away. So like the distance from LA to New York and back, that's the distance from Tanzania coast to Morocco. And this High Atlas Foundation, this is a great organization, again, way under the radar, doing wonderful grassroots work, really engaging the local communities. And they have many arrows in their quiver, but one of them is tree planting, because there are various biomes in North Africa when you start to get up in the hills where there is just enough water, like barely, but yes, just enough water, where fruiting trees can make sense when amplified and supported by groundwater, et cetera, et cetera. So those are kind of like an economic development thing. So a lot of the people that are employed there are women who are growing cherries, they're growing figs, they're growing olives, they're growing carob or whatever. And it's income security and it's food security. As a benefit, it's also groundwater retention. So in the rainy season, when it does rain, the soil's now got some air in it. It's been made healthy by the tree. And healthy soil is, no surprise, 25% air. You have to have that much air in it so things can breathe and whatever, and the water can seep down in there, and the trees help sort of, they work together. The trees help push the roots down, and they make room for each other, and they make more room, and blah, blah, blah. So symbiotic. Hey, guess what? They evolved together over billions of years. Amazing. They can work together. How about that? Maybe we should pay attention to that. So there's lots of benefits to those trees in that community. Same type of thing in Tanzania, where in some instances, the waters are for food, economic security, almost an enticement, if you will. Don't go into the forest and clear cut a bunch of trees just so you can plant carrots. Here's a couple of avocado trees that we've actually grafted that will start fruiting much more quickly. Rather than like 6 or 7 years, they'll start fruit in 2 or 3. And avocados are big business. And, oh, by the way, they're insanely healthy. So now you're talking about nourishing the community, not feeding the community. It's a mindset. These aren't empty calories. This is really nourishing the people there. And then, they're getting enough money where they can send their kids to school and all that. So if they have some kind of economic benefit from the tree, that reduces the stress on the local ecology. Mm-hmm. Right. And then in this case, where we were, all these blogs are on my website, and I've got a little sort of blog for each one. There's a well there that is starting to run dry. Right, for the last 10 years. And they had clear cut a lot of the trees around it for firewood or this or that. And then, the thing is that twice a year, there's like a deluge rainy season, and then it's kind of pretty parched for months. Right. So the idea is that you need to catch that water when you can. Yeah. Make sun while the rain shines, or, make a well while the sun ain't shining and it's pouring rain. So the amount of water coming out of this one well that was the water source for like 4,000 people. Wow. Was like a small trickle. That's death, right? So those people, if that goes away, those people are refugees. They have to leave their home. No water, no nothing, right? So if people want to, hey, we need to solve the refugee crisis, all these people, getting on these boats and going through these horrible journeys and terrible stories and trafficking and all this other kind of just terrible stuff. Well, give them food and water where they are, because that's where they'd rather stay.
Right. Yeah.
No one wants to leave. Who the hell wants to be a refugee? Maybe some sick people, but they're a minority. You don't have to worry about them. So what we did is we planted about 20,000 trees right in the immediate vicinity of the well. And now, rather than these being fruiting trees like avocados and what have you, these were very densely packed, very straight, tall trees that could run the deep, deep root system. So when it did rain, that water was caught and captured and slowed down. So you want to slow it down and absorb it. That's the number one thing with water. Slow it down and absorb it. Yeah, sure, it sequesters carbon and it increases the biodiversity of the soil and all that kind of stuff. And ironically, a lot of people will support our organization because of carbon and climate change and all that kind of stuff, which is great, which is wonderful. And thank you very much. That's a thing. That's a real thing. But the impact and the importance of trees on the water cycle is probably greater than it is on the carbon cycle. Because with water now, the soil can now sort of start to absorb carbon. So you get this real leverage and amplifier effect going on. So we put 20,000 trees there, and that was a year and a half ago. It's going to take about maybe another 2.5 years, but we're watching the water levels slowly, steadily go up. And since it's cyclical, it's not like it's a straight line. And then, last fall, they didn't get the rains that they wanted, but now they did in the spring. Actually, their fall, they're in the southern hemisphere. Nearby that, we went up the mountain that sits on top of that, and we planted another 160,000 trees that had been sort of clear cut and, paid people to do that. People made good money. They made 10,000 shillings a day working hard, carrying hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of seedlings up the hill. That's $4.20, and that's good money for them. But that's what got all those trees planted. Now that's way uphill from the spring, and it all kind of works together. The most important thing, or the local partner that we have there, is Deep Friends, is from there and made friends with the village elders and got everybody on board that, okay, we're going to come here, we're going to fix this problem, but thou shalt not cut down these frickin' trees. Yeah. See that little trickle of water? That's what happens, right? And then there's all the social pressure that you can build on that, of course, that I have no idea about. I don't get involved with. It's their world. But yeah, it was, thou shalt. Right. So when I went and visited last June, the first thing we did is we went to the village and we just I wanted to see the trees. I'm like, hey, show me the trees. And I'm like, oh, no, first things first. And you sat down in a room and you just sort of sat and smiled and you kept your mouth shut and you smiled sweetly and you talked to the guy and he said, we're very glad that you're here. I'm very glad to be here. You drank the tea, your little tea party and all that. And you show them respect. I don't go in anywhere and tell people what to do. Ever. If they have a plan, if they have a program, they need to sell me on it. They need to convince me that it's the right thing to do. Yeah. And, show me what happened the next town over or the next valley over. And, okay, we want to sort of, rinse, repeat that, hit the replicate button, repeat button on all that kind of stuff. And this is how much money we need to do it, to which I say, okay, got it. Hold that thought. I'll go get it. That's my job. I'm the connector. So again, long answer to your question. Hopefully that hit on the points.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating. With your background in business and marketing and all of the different things you did before, how do you feel that it prepared you to start a nonprofit? And what are some of the things that you've seen that you've been able to help move the needle in because you have those skill sets?
Well, persistence, number one, you got to keep pressing your nose to the window, and that's sales. There's a great saying, I think it was an Environmental Defense Fund, a really good organization, and they have a whole bunch of lawyers. I believe it's their logo. Correct me if I'm wrong or check me if I'm wrong. But their saying was, because the world needs a good lawyer, which is a good thing. We're going to sue polluters and do that stuff. We're going to roll up our sleeves and we're going to go out and we're going to fight for your rights, the rights of the planet, which is wonderful. Take a slight twist on that. The world needs also a good salesman. Yeah. Right. We need to sell the fact that it's a small blue marble and it's not infinite. And, we need to take care of it. So first you have to sort of, believe in the product, in which I do, and then just sort of your sleeves and just also be kind of a little pushy, small P, and like, hey, I'm here. Or, hey, I called you and I emailed you and I texted you and we don't have a meeting. But guess what? I'm in your lobby. I just showed up. And that's happened many times.
Wow.
You have to get over your fear of doing that. And sometimes it doesn't work, and sometimes it works beautifully. Like I'm trying to for example, we're working with some local professional sports teams here. DC United is our professional soccer team. Yeah. Go black and red, right? Big fan forever. For the third year in a row, they're going to do a sustainability night, a theme night, as these teams do. And that's fine. And that's good. But for the third year in a row, they're going to plant one tree for every ticket sold. Wow. Right. And it's a 20,000 seat stadium, Audi Field. And that's going to be 20,000 more trees. And that's going to happen this Saturday, probably after this is broadcast. But anyway, trying to leverage that, so, hey, this is a professional team. This is a thing. People love it. I had a booth, whatever. And I was thinking, well, there's 30 other soccer teams out there. There's every single Major League Baseball team. Mm-hmm. Guess how many minor league baseball teams there are?
Right. Yeah.
A lot. And then also, big time colleges, which is practically pro football anyway. Mm-hmm. So I was calling, and I had to be in Wisconsin last August for a sports event. There is a thing, by the way, called the American Ultimate Disc League, which is a professional
I've heard of that, I think. Yeah,
it's awesome. They have a great team in LA there. And their Final Four, they've been planting like 5-10 trees for every attendee for now. It was like 3 years in a row. So 20,000 trees helps offset the travel footprint of that weekend. Well, I'm driving to Wisconsin. What's between DC and Wisconsin? The entire Big Ten, right? Mm-hmm. So I roll up my sleeves and I call people and I try to get meetings, and I had 30 targets and I had 3 meetings set up, right? Everybody else, I just showed up, right? And it's just good old fashioned shoe leather road warrior back in the day when I was a sales guy. And it was kind of fun, I got to tell you, because no one expects it anymore.
Right, exactly.
You're kind of an anomaly. Hey, there's someone here to see me in the flesh that's not on my little computer screen. Oh my God. It's like something interesting happened today, honey. What happened to you? Somebody showed up to talk to me. Oh my gosh. So that worked for a few big name organizations that I won't name. Hopefully I will be able to name them soon. The outfits that you heard of. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. You're the guy with the trees. Come on in, And I had a meeting. So it helped with that. It also helped when I had my little agency, if you will, when I was on the board of the ad club here in DC, because I was the, quote, online expert in 1997. And being the online expert in 1997 meant having your own domain.
Yeah.
And putting it on your business card. And that's all I did. And that's all I knew, because none of us knew a friggin' thing, So we're all, laying down the tracks as we're rolling down the highway. But understanding brands and differentiation and protecting the brand and hearing all that and sort of getting it. And everybody's got a brand. I know some of your guests are talking about their personal brands and all that. There was one gentleman, what was it, Rich Kozak, I listened to. It was very, very interesting what he was saying. And how do you differentiate? So your brand, and now how I differentiate my brand, even though I'm a 501c3, so I'm a nonprofit, this isn't a CSR thing or whatever, and it can be, or whatever the latest buzzword is, no offense. You talk to a lot of these PR people and they'll say ESG is the latest CSR, which is the latest QPL, which is, whatever.
Yeah.
Fine. At the end of the day, they want to differentiate their brand. The businesses are things. They're employed by people who have flesh and blood and who care, but businesses are things, and things do not care. Mm-hmm. The only thing businesses care about is black ink or red ink. Mm-hmm. Right? That's the business. And you have to sort of make that distinction. So when I'll sit down and talk to these folks, I said, I want to talk to your marketing team. I'll talk about their branding dollar. Well, our ESG guy, I'd love to talk to your ESG guy, but 99 times out of 100, ESG guy has no money and has no budget and has no stroke and has no influence. And too often it's window dressing. No offense. I'm sure you've seen that too. It's too bad.
Yeah.
I want to talk. I want to talk with the marketing people, the people who are doing the ad spending, because I used to do ad buying and I can talk your language and how to differentiate.
Yeah.
And I'll sort of do a quick deep dive, almost a mini Shark Tank on them, make sure I understand where are they focused, what is their niche, what's their agenda, what story they want to tell. I said, listen, okay, trees, I got 50 stories here from trees about community development and water retention and girls going to school, and that is relevant. And all this stuff, which one do you want? I mean, after a while, people's eyes are going to glass over. What's going to help you sell your soap? So let's figure out which story will resonate the best with your target audience and go from there. Because at the end of the day, even though I'm a 501c3, I'm here to make you money. If you're a partner of mine and our fates are tied together, where it's like every product you sell plants a tree, sort of, one-to-one, sort of bake it in, then yes, I want you to sell 1 million of them tomorrow. because I need the money to plant 1 million trees tomorrow. That's what I want, right? So let's work together on all that. And some brains are like, yeah, no, we got this. We'll just send you the check. And I'm like, fine. And other people are like, what do you think? I'm like, well, I'm not stupid. I've got a lot of arrows in my back and I'm happy to share some experiences, what's happened with other brands or what happened to me in 1997 when I was trying to do something else and blah, blah, blah. And, I got gray hair for a reason, everyone's got a story, do you want to benefit from that information? I'm happy to share it with you. And some people are like, heck yeah, come on in. We need all the help we can get. So it's like you're getting marketing guy for free.
Right.
That's how I would love you to look at it and think about it. Like I'm here for you and your brand and how to differentiate. And then when it comes to the trees, a lot of times the stories are great, but a lot of times, less is more because human beings are already pre-hardwired. They've done studies about this. You just say the word tree. Annika, there's a beautiful tree in my backyard. You've got an image in your mind. And as soon as that happens, they've done studies. They put the probes on people's skulls and brains. And, happy pheromones or whatever, happens in the brain. Happy brain waves happen. People just think about a tree and it makes them feel good.
Soothing. I was looking at, not to totally take us off topic, but I was looking at bamboo and birch wallpaper just like yesterday. Like trees are very soothing. Maybe I want this in my new office.
That's exactly. It's not off topic. That is the point. That is the topic. So if you're a brand selling anything, why wouldn't you want to affiliate your brand with something that is innately positive in the human psyche?
Yeah.
It's just baked in, right? For whatever reason. And then, we can get into a big anthropological discussion about why that is, but that's another discussion. So how do we do that appropriately and properly where, you get that warm and fuzzy instantly and then, marketing 101, mind share turns into market share either quickly or in the short term, medium, long term, but eventually it's almost a guarantee. You will see a bump, the needle will move if you differentiate. For example, we're working with a vodka. Can I name names?
Of course you can name names.
Okay. Origin, Origen. They plant a tree for every bottle they sell. How many brands of vodka are there out there?
1 million.
Go to any store and this is a premium brand and they've got some good stuff in it. And they put artichoke and other things into it. Elderberry, some other things into it.
Yeah.
But they plant the tree and they bake it into the cost. It's like the cost of the bottle, right? Yeah. They bake that in. Honey, how many people make honey? Family-owned outfit, 911honey.com. They are coming up on their first 20,000th tree.
Wow.
And their model is actually where they sort of integrate it such that when you go and you buy your stuff at checkout, it says, hey, you want to plant a tree with that? They're 15 cents.
Okay.
And for every tree you plant, we'll match it.
Wow.
So it's like those 20,000 trees, 10 came from the company, 10 came from their customers. So the customers feel like I'm doing something good just by voting with my dollars, making my decisions count to the bottom line.
But these are the kind of integrations that are needed. And to your point, in the very early days of the internet, I often like to joke that I had one of the first influencer campaigns because I was about to launch a magazine in the year 2000. And I went into music chat rooms and, specifically like dance music and club music chat rooms and say, hey, we're starting a new magazine. Do you want to be one of my revolutionaries? Send me all your information. I'll send you swag bags every month with flyers, t-shirts, record bags, like special things. And when we pop up in your city, we'll get you on the guest list. And so, thinking about ways to engage with audiences in different, unique ways that will still make them feel good and attract them to the cause. This is marketing 101, but so many people don't do this. And also the fact that you did a roadshow, because now when I get mail from somebody because they were on my podcast or because they want to send me a special gift to thank me for whatever, it means so much more than it might have in the past because nobody does that anymore. You get the email, right? How many emails a day do we get? Hundreds, if not thousands of emails from people trying to sell us stuff. So I think this is a really important discussion for the listener to think about. How do you differentiate yourself in the marketplace? What are you doing differently? And as a nonprofit, particularly, the fact that you're offering your business and marketing acumen to these brands and helping them really see how positioning with you is going to change their narrative and attract new customers to them. I mean, this is what's needed.
That's the theory, but you're still new. You're still a new guy, and so that it just took too long to get to like I said, the first million, but that's starting to accelerate. starting to pick up, like I said, working with DC United again. And, we're also working with granting organizations. So nothing to do with branding or marketing, anything like that.
But I will argue that even in that process, because I work a lot with like workforce development, education, nonprofits, and they have realized that putting more elements of storytelling and impact into their narratives when they're going to, for instance, in Sacramento, when they're going to talk to legislators or appropriations committees, that storytelling is so important. And that is branding and marketing.
Totally. Yeah. I'm sorry. It's a different animal, but at the end of the day, you got to still sell the soap, right?
Right, exactly.
These are the granting organizations, family offices and things like that. Yeah. So that's a different sell. It's a different type of thing. But, sure, at its core, you got to like project, competence and quality and responsibility and all that. So we did get a nice grant in 2021. And with that, we've planted 250,000 trees. Those 3 locations that I mentioned, wrote it all up, put it on the blog post, link to it. This is this. Thank you very much, blah, blah, blah. And then they came back in January. Hey, Hank, that was wonderful. What do you got? We're having another meeting in the spring. We want you to submit what you got. I go, well, I got this brand new mangrove restoration thing in East Africa that we really could get a kickoff. And they're like, yeah, okay, fine. So literally the cash for that showed up today.
Oh my gosh. Congratulations.
So it's a very good day, not just because I get to chat with you. It's 400,000 trees. Now, got the money for, plus a trip there back to the East Coast, the Indian Ocean coast of Tanzania. And if you've never been, oh my, is it gorgeous? Is it gorgeous out there? So anyway, it all has to work together to make it work. And in a way, I'm kind of like a little bit of, a brand differentiator. There's lots of ways to differentiate brands. And a lot of them are legitimate. Most of them aren't. But, a lot of them are. They don't always have to include trees. But I'm that kind of guy. One thing I do have to say, this is not the carbon scheme. This is not carbon offsets. We went net zero by buying carbon offsets for our product. That goes in one ear and out the next. I don't think anybody believes it. They don't understand it. I looked into it. It's kind of a scheme. So sure, I will talk carbon. I will talk carbon offset, but I will use the get out of jail word is help. So like the DC United game that's going to happen this Saturday night, 20,000 trees could get planted. Probably if I did all the math, it's a good shot that event is now carbon negative. Probably, but I can't guarantee it.
Right.
Because I don't know the whole footprint of what it took to get all these people into the stadium and all that. And then the carbon sequestration of the tree is all over the map, and I'm a numbers guy. I was double major in math and engineering. I love numbers and I love accountability and I love metrics. But I take one look at this and I've been looking at it for years. I'm like, you can't put a meter on each tree and you just don't really kind of know. So talk carbon a little bit, that it helps cool the planet, but don't go too far down that rabbit hole. Just say, hey, we planted a tree and good things happen, and check it out at, ourbrand.com/where we planted the trees. And Hank gets you the photos and gets you the stories and what I call the SFW, or the so frickin' what, that you planted the trees, here, these are the reasons. These are the very real impacts. And thank you very much. By making this particular purchasing choice, it adds up. And you bake it in and you make it easy. It's already baked in. So people don't have to, if they want to support on their own, they're invited to do so, but it's not necessary. The brand's already done that and they appreciate that. That's the key thing. What I found from a lot of people is, especially at events, and I go to DC United games and I said, did you know that you planted a tree just by showing up tonight? They sort of stop and their eyebrows go up. And they go, I did? Oh, cool. DC United did that. Audi did that. Thank you very much. Good. That's something that they'll remember.
Yeah, definitely. Wow. I think you've answered every question that I had for you. And this has been really fantastic. I just really love what you're doing.
Thank you.
Where can people find you and figure out how to partner with you or just donate some trees?
Sure. ForestPlanet.org is our website. We're on Facebook at Go Negative because going carbon neutral is not good enough. It's net zero stuff. Sorry, ship sailed, not good enough. Got to go negative, So I got the domain gonegative.org. I'll put up a website someday. Maybe you can help with that.
Yeah.
If people have any questions or want to make a donation or talk to me about partnership, I've got the email is donations@forestplanet.org, and I'll respond to it right away and make it happen. Set up a chat. Love to talk with anybody.
Very cool. Well, I know I'm going to follow up with you, talk a little bit about Ghana after this for sure. Because as we're thinking about go through the process of buying farmland, we've identified, we have the whole list of all the different things, but I think that there's some things that you could probably help us there with as well. So I'm looking forward to figuring out how to partner.
I'd love to tell you anything I can.
Awesome. Thank you. Yep. And Hank, do you have any final words of wisdom, a quote, a verse, a poem, a mantra that you'd like to share with us?
So it's funny because I was listening to your other podcast, and it's cool that you do that. And I've got a bunch on my mind. Can I do two?
Of course.
They're kind of short. They're both from improbable sources, which just make them all the more interesting. One is from, you're too young, but there used to be a football coach at Ohio State called Woody Hayes, and he was an SOB. Okay. He was just a real, he got fired for hitting another player on the other team. I mean, but he was a huge winning coach, but he's not without his wisdom. And he said, like, nothing is ever as good or as bad as it first seems. So I had to go through that today and realize just when stuff happens, just take a breath, be calm, put your skull back together and, sort of deal with it. And the other, it's like, something's great. All our problems are solved. Everything's wonderful. Yet, no, it is. So there's that. So I love that quote. And another one is from a very interesting source. I can't even tell you the author because people don't know who the author is. And it's foreign places yield more to one who is worth meeting.
Oh, okay.
And that is from Beowulf.
Wow.
And so I keep that in mind when I travel to the four corners of the planet to visit my trees.
Wonderful. Well, I'm looking forward to continuing this journey and learning more about how I can personally get involved in ForestPlanet. And I think you've given some really great lessons that anybody can apply to their businesses and think about no matter where they are, whether you have a for-profit or nonprofit, or you're looking at some kind of social good component, which we all know is a big buzzword, but it's more than a buzzword. It's something that's really important. And
I think one of your other guests said it's just like, 90% of audiences now or consumers now expect it.
Yeah.
There needs to be a social component with any brand.
Yeah.
So,
but as you talked about earlier, it needs to be authentic and genuine. They have to actually see that because so many brands say that they're doing stuff and they're really not. So.
And the more affordable, the better. If you can get all that for 15 cents, then I think that's a good deal. So that's what we try to package it down. Yep.
Awesome. Well, Hank, thank you so much. This has been a delightful conversation. I'll have the website in the show notes and everything so people can really easily click through to your website and get involved. And thank you to our audience for coming back for another week of Your Brand Amplified. I'll be back again in a few days with another amazing expert.
Want more? Check out amplifywithannika.com or follow me on socials at amplifywithannika.